Hello and welcome to the last class. We hear you. Jennifer hears you too. This is the last class of the semester. You all did pretty well. I mean, grades are good. You're turning in the work. It's a little strange. I wish I knew more of you in person. So does she. But we do appreciate the effort and we're here for you as things go on. What we'll do for the next week is the last test is tomorrow through Friday online. There's no final exam. It's only the 20th century, no comprehensive final. So we're done. And if you want to talk to me about grades, we can set up a Zoom meeting. I will, of course, curve up the test results. So all of that, the grades will still be in flux, but we're done. And we appreciate it. I don't want to put any more stress on you. It has been weird for all of us. So the last thing we're going to do is review for the last test. And that would be all right. Test guide. And as I've learned to do, I'm learning on how to do this as well. And I hope to actually see some of you in person in classes next fall. And we'll see. Always here to help. Okay. Test due Friday, April 23rd at midnight. You have 3 whole days. It'll go live first thing at midnight tonight. What was the status of media ethics at the beginning of the 20th century? There was no such thing. It was the era of yellow journalism. And everything goes. The whole concept of media ethics did not start until the 20th century with Adolph Ochs of Chattanooga. He owned the Chattanooga Times and he bought the New York Times and started the idea of responsible media as a new niche in the market. What responsible media is, we're still arguing about. But he came up with the concept that with all the news that's fit, in other words, everything else is trash. Why did media ethics evolve? As a marketing technique to set apart Yep, it was the world of yellow journalism. And it wasn't like we want to make the world a better place. It was, hey, we want to stand out in the market. Media ethics had always been a business decision. What are the strengths and weaknesses of codes of ethics? Strengths gives guidelines and ideas. Weakness, no enforcement power. They're just ideas. Influenced by audience, employers, but ultimately ethics are personal decisions. You know, people, if they don't like it, you could turn it off. You know, you don't have to watch a given news show. You don't like the questions they ask. But ultimately, you decide as a journalism or media person what's ethical and what's not. Who invented radio? Marconi, largely, but lots of people were involved. It goes to the telegraph, Hertz and radio waves, and De Forest with the Audion tube. Lots of people invented different parts. How did the notion of broadcasting begin? Broadcasting is when De Forest and Sarnoff thought of using existing technology. Radio was supposed to be like the telegraph. But others saw we could use this same technology in a different way. So it wasn't so much about a new invention. Again, it was a new idea. He invented FM and he made radio practical, but he was bought out by Sarnoff and largely forgotten. He was Marconi's assistant, but he came up with the idea of broadcasting, making the radios before we knew what to do with them, and then inventing the broadcast network. He invented NBC, he invented the network. Did he invent any technology? No. Again, it's about using what you already had and an existing technology in a new way. How did the creation of RCA in 1918 show how things work today? Sarnoff used RCA to make radios before there was radio programming, much like the iPad today. Who knew you wanted an iPad before it actually had one? There you go. The RCA made the radios, then he gave you the things to put on them. If we have free speech, why was the FCC created? Because not everyone can have a broadcast license. So it's like a driver's license. It's a privilege. You can easily lose that privilege. Just like if you have too many DWIs for driving badly, you can lose your license. Too many F-bombs on the radio, and you can lose your broadcast license. Works the same way. Not everybody could be a broadcaster. Anybody could set up a web page. That's different. In fact, on other media, excuse me, hay fever is coming in. Live entertainment, recorded music.
Bless you.
Thank you. It's just hay fever, that time of year. Anyway, advantage of the network, cheaper to operate. If you have the network, you don't need separate announcers, musicians, actors. You could just plug into the network. Before that, everybody had their own announcers, their own shows. They'd all be producing their own shows. With the network, you don't have to worry about that. What program genres began? Game shows, sitcoms, soap operas, talk shows. All the stuff you see on TV, except for maybe reality TV, came from radio. Why did it not preserve FM? They were working on television. We didn't care if radio sounded better. We had this new thing, TV. NBC was too powerful and a monopoly. So you couldn't have one entity running everything. We don't believe in that now. There's talk of breaking up Facebook and Microsoft and Google the same way. How did TV affect radio? All the radio shows went to TV and radio turned to music. The industry that they helped destroy 50 years earlier came back and helped save radio. Rock and roll, new music, new ideas, minority influences. Yeah, liberation, rock and roll's black music, comes from the Delta. You never heard anything like that before if you're some white kid living in Minnesota. So it started a law of civil rights and the sexual revolution. News, info, background, it's still with us. Who invented television? Lots of people, really. So, simultaneously. However, Philo T. Farnsworth invented electronic TV, the one with the TV tubes we generally use. He invented the idea of broadcast TV. Sarnoff brought TV to NBC and cut off Armstrong and Farnsworth. He bought them out, took their patents, and made sure they were written out of the history books. It's one of the reasons I make a big deal about them, because I want you to remember good people who worked hard and made a difference. Vladimir Zworykin was Sarnoff's engineer, wrongly credited with the invention of TV. You look up on places like history books, when I were a kid, they would say that Zworykin invented television because Sarnoff made sure that's what people said, and they forgot about Farnsworth. So anyway, why did FCC freeze TV licenses? To allow them to standardize technology, screen sizes, regulations, all that stuff. Can't do that anymore. They stopped the whole industry just so that everyone could get on the same page. Can't do that with the internet because the internet is international. How did TV affect other media? Radio shows went to TV. Movies went into decline because you could see stuff on TV. Everything affected other media. How did TV affect sports? The rise of the NFL, NCAA, NBA. Hockey will never be big in this country because it looks sucky on TV. But these things, football particularly, you have some action and then time for a commercial. Perfect. Politics. Politicians had to look and dress good. Shorter statements. You have to have that news bite that, say everything you have to say in a few sentences so it looks good on TV. Had to look and so you have less depth. Back to Vietnam, uncensored. Yeah, you saw American troops doing bad things, innocent kids getting killed and maimed, and people turned against the war. You notice we're finally finishing the war in Afghanistan after 20 years this year. You don't see too many pictures because they don't want to let you see it anymore. Bad things happen in Afghanistan too. Cable TV came in because Ted Turner bought a spot on a satellite to allow him to beam to local cable companies, giving us CNN and TBS. Remember, MTV affected culture, making music visual. Having more channels affected society. Not everybody saw the same programming, so they had different ideas. We're not watching the same stuff anymore. We have different news. We have conservative news, you have liberal news, you have Christian news, and it's all not the same. So nobody agrees on the basic stuff we're talking about. Reality TV rose because the writers went on strike and the producers including one crafty New York real estate developer who became the thing and eventually became president. Streaming services affected and alternatives to broadcasting thank you for removing the limit because we're almost done. Streaming services affect broadcasting. Different options mean people see different things. And we have less in common. These days, gosh, we're swamped with all the stuff on the streaming services. So we're not even talking about the same shows anymore. Who invented the internet? The US government. Yeah, they took out a big city. You still have a network that works, a communication network that works. So it came from the US government. It wasn't entrepreneurs like DeForest or Sarnoff or Samuel Morse. It was all the government. Everybody on salary. Nobody was trying to make money. And those happy scientists thought that giving the world knowledge would make the world a better place. Gosh, were they wrong. Why don't we put police or regulate the internet more heavily? First, it's not like broadcasting. Everyone can do it. So if everybody can have a page, it's not a privilege. Second, international. Is not one government to over. So if something happens here, they can't stop it in China or Russia, and vice versa. A lot of the hacking that we get comes from Russia or North Korea. Not much we can do about it. Why did internet entrepreneurs suffer business failures? Because there was no good economic model to accept advertising. And that's the way it still is today. Advertising and subscriptions, the same stuff. Net neutrality is the idea that all users should have the same access. No advantages for corporations. Abandoned in 2018. Why? Because you should not be penalized just because you're a big corporation. So then you have Disney Plus come in. You know, you watch Disney all the time. What did Thomas Greenberg say when the world is flat? We are all wired and connected. Yeah, if I have a problem with a computer and I call up somebody, it's usually Rajiv in Bangalore. You know, it's other side of the world, but boom, there he is. The world is flat. Okay, we won't go into this, but just FYI, this is left over from last semester. Magic bullet theory is the idea that media is big and powerful. It's the magic bullet and can have major effects. What is propaganda? Is probably using media to propagate ideas. Invented by Benito Mussolini. Came up with the term. He was a newspaper guy originally. He was a media person. What happened when we gave unlimited access? People saw disturbing images of US actions and turned against the war. Okay, asked that one twice. What policies? Limits on media access. Reporters can't see everything. They are embedded, pooled. You go into a pool of reporters and watched. They're watched all the time. It's not really censorship, but you're certainly restricted from where you can go. Whew. A lot of stuff happened in the 20th century. And that brings us to where we are today. Oops, somebody has a question in chat. Yes, it has been a pleasure to work with you all. I mean, this online thing has been a little strange, but in this class, the grades are good. I've had some good interactions and it all seems to work. Save as study guide with answers. Okay. So, any questions? Test is the test, goes until Friday. Let me know if you have any issues. It has been a pleasure to work with you guys. This class has actually gone well. I'm doing it again online next fall. You know, it's just much easier and safer still. Some things will never change. But I've really enjoyed working with you. Any other questions? All right. Otherwise, have a good one. We will keep in touch. I hope we do. Thank you. And Juniper, thanks you too.